Hi, another important function in your point of sale system or FORPOS specifically is obviously to set up passwords to be used in the point of sale or touchscreen program. In front of us is the point of sale on its own. So typically you will type in your password or you will swipe your card, a magnetic card, a swipe card reader, or alternatively you'll be using the a fingerprint reader as well. As you can see, FORPOS caters for fingerprint reader. In my case, or in this example, the fingerprint reader has not been installed. But those are the three different options. So either keyboard, swipe card, or a biometric reader, or then fingerprint reader for that matter. Alright, so to set up a password, as you can see, sorry, on the screen there, if I type in a password 1234 and press enter, it will basically just tell me invalid security code, as you can see over there. So to set up your passwords in FORPOS, it's a back office function. So what you'll do is you'll go to Store Setup and Security, Maintain Employee Details, and in the Maintain Employee Details you can then select an existing person. A lot of customers ask, well, how do we get rid of the default? Well, first of all, you can just simply double click on it and change the password to something else other than the default. The default, I think everybody knows by now, the user ID is default and the password is the word password, and the scan ID is 123456789. In other words, all the numbers. So if you don't want this to be used anymore, let's just go back to the point of sale so I can just show you that functionality. So that's the default now, and if I press enter, and as you can see, I can log in, and now it will simply say default. The problem with that concept is that at the end of the day, you do not really know who rang up the sale, who did the payout, whatever the functionality is that they performed. So to change that, you can literally just go in here into your default password and change it to whatever else you want to bear. Okay, for now I'm just changing it to 555, and the password here I'm also making a 555. And then a third way, and also a good way, is to say disable this person from using the application suite. In other words, this password is no longer valid. And if you exit, now obviously you'll see the default now disappears off the screen here. So let's do a new password. Let's click on new, and I'll just give it a name, Joe Soap, again, my favorite name. And Joe Soap has got a back office details. This is the back office login. Maybe Joe Soap does not use the back office, or should not use it, should not be able to do any back office functionality. And the scan ID, I would then just type in the scan ID would be the point of sale ID. As you can see, point of sale log on there at the top. So in there I can go and type in a number 1234, argument's sake. All right. Important also then to go and specify the permissions. Now we just said Joe Soap will not use the back office, so I'm not going to give any details there. Oh, sorry, the system complains that there is no details there in the first name, or no title. So if we click on back office permissions, these are the back office permissions. We'll go through detail just now, so I'm not going to give that anything. And then in point of sale, let's assume Joe Soap is just a normal cashier. In other words, this person is allowed to do sales, so I want to give him access to the point of sale sales channel, and I want to say yes, this person is also allowed to access the point of sale, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, we're not going to make them give them any of the other functionalities that is there. So this person will be able to log in and also do sales, but they're not allowed to do anything funny. They can't void, they can't refund, etc., etc. All right, so let's just go and test that concept. So I've got Joe Soap there. I'm going to click exit. Again, the old story, we're going to do an update point of sale to send the information from the back office through to the point of sale. I make a note of my point of sale transaction number. It's going to be 3961 once it's gone through. And my domain controller is open, so it will update. You can see the numbers there at the top, 3960 at the moment. It's going to flash now, which it just did. And my point of sale comes through, and as you can see, it's there. Now, earlier we had the default password, so now I can try that, and now suddenly the default, as you can see, does not work anymore. If I want to log in as Joe Soap, sorry, I made a boo-boo, and I made his password 1234, I can see Joe Soap is now logged in, and at the bottom here it will show Joe Soap's name. Alright, so now I know that Joe Soap is active, and I pressed F1 for search, and it says, can't do that. You're not authorized to do a search. And again, you might say, but hang on, surely that's normal. No, it's not normal, because we don't necessarily want Joe Soap to be able to go and search a product. We want him just to scan an item. Alright, so I don't know if I've got an item 1001, and it so happens I do. And so you can see Joe Soap can sell on the system. He can press the subtotal button. He can finalize the sale, and everything else on the point of sales. Transaction complete, printer will work, everything else. Alright, so that's a normal sale. Simple cashier, no functionality allowed. Now, you might say, okay, but hang on, I do want him to be able to do a search. Alright, so let's go and have a look in the back office again for Joe Soap's permissions. Maintain employee details for Joe Soap. I'm going to go back to my point of sale permissions, and then right at the bottom here you'll see there's an option, view all tables or allow search. Okay, view all tables is obviously a touchscreen functionality if you want this person to be able to see all the open tables, but in our case now for retail, for the 4POS scan program, yes, I want them to do the search. Alright, and again, let's go through the process. We're going to do an update, and let it go through. Now, just on that point, there's two updates. As you can see under store setup, there's also update point of sale there, as well as update point of sale under stock create edit. They're exactly the same, so you can use either the one or the other. Alright, so Joe Soap's passwords have now been done. If I press F1, still doesn't allow me, because Joe Soap's permissions got loaded when I logged in with him. So I'm going to just log out, Alt L as the default, and type in Joe Soap's passwords again, and now you see suddenly the F1 option works for Joe Soap. In other words, he is now able to go and do that. So you can go and sell an item. If I now try to void something, it says call the supervisor again, because Joe Soap cannot void. Now in this environment, if you want to if you want to override this functionality, in other words, Joe Soap is now trying to do a void, you can call the supervisor gets to the computer, the supervisor can then type in his password, and with a message on the screen there, as you can see, so I'm going to press F8 again because the update came through. I can press Alt and S for sugar, to type in the override password. And the override password that I'm going to type in will be for manager. You'll see it immediately changes to yellow, meaning that it's allowed. I can now go and do my void, and the void is done. And now Joe Soap can carry on with his sale. Okay, and he can go and ring up the other product that he wanted. This override is now applicable for this sale. In other words, this password for the manager has been typed in. Joe Soap for this transaction can do that. So let's assume now for the moment that we finalize that sale. So the manager might stand around for a couple of seconds just to make sure that the sale is complete, and now Joe Soap starts with a new sale. As you can see, rings it up, and he tries to press F8 again, and again it asks him, call the supervisor. Now obviously somewhere along the line the manager is going to say, no Joe, what are you trying to do, my man? You can't keep on scanning the wrong item and so on. I think suggest you step off. Let's put another cashier on here, and then obviously once the Joe Soap has been properly trained and do not make these kind of mistakes, or realizes that he can't get away with it, if that is his intent, we can take it from there. Alright, so that is the functionality in the point of sale. On the touchscreen side we'll show you just now. So let's just go back to the back office quickly and look at the other functionality. Oh, sorry, if you do not know what the functionality is or what the Alt S is, obviously for the in the back office under keyboard layouts, you can actually go and change the supervisor password. As you can see over there, it's security override is Alt S, and you can make it something else if you want to. Alright, I just pressed the escape button on the keyboard, and it says now it will be escape. Now that's not a good idea, so I'm just going to decline the change. and exit out of there. Alright, so let's go back to Joe Soap and see what other functionality he or she might need, and or for your staff for that matter. So I'm going to go back to point of sale parameters and let's just go through them quickly. The sales channels here on the right hand side is, do we allow Joe to be able to sell on any of the other price channels? Now, if you're not using that, obviously that's very dangerous. You don't want Joe suddenly to log into the different sales channel, or a wrong one for that matter, and suddenly you realize that all your selling prices are now at the wrong prices and Joe is now manipulating the system. So do not give them access here unless it's maybe set up through a customer editor itself, and you can watch a video about how to link the sales channels to an account. Okay. On the point of sale permissions, can they revoke? In other words, the void that we just done. Are they allowed to change prices? I definitely don't think so. Are they allowed to delete a transaction? Are they allowed to do reversals? Somebody changes a Coke for a Fanta. Working with accounts. In other words, they're working with debtors of yours. Work with consignment stock. Work with quotes. Can they toggle the deposit? Now, the deposit is for liquor stores mainly, and also supermarkets, that you can specify which price must be charged for the deposit. Can they set the toggles on and off? Can they do the shrink toggle? Cash back. In other words, if the customer pays on credit card, am I allowed, or is Joe allowed to receive 50 Rand on a credit card for a sale of only 35 Rand? In other words, give the change back on the credit card. Again, decisions that you need to make and say, what implications, financial implications otherwise will that be? Do I trust Joe enough to give him that power over my money? Okay. Are they allowed to give discounts? Very important. In the system, we cater for discounts. So is Joe allowed to give a 5%, 10% discount? Is Joe allowed to open up the till without doing a sale? Suppress transactions. Are they allowed to suppress the sale if the cashiers or the day-ends only being done at a later stage? Is Joe allowed to go and look at his X reading and see whether his turnover, what a turnover is, and maybe remove excess cash? Dangerous. Is Joe allowed to do a cash up? Is Joe allowed to type in or do the declaration? In other words, declare how much cash does he have in the drawer? Joe allowed to do payouts? Approve or overdue account sales. In other words, the person is now outside of their terms. Your customer has now not paid his bill. He's most likely exceeded the credit limit as well. Is Joe allowed to approve that, yes or no? Is Joe a manager? Well, manager's got other functionalities that's built into the title of manager as well. Can Joe go into configuration and change the printer? Do deposit credits? Do a stock check? Dangerous again, because if Joe knows how much stock there is on the system and he finds extra stock on the floor, would Joe be able to remove that? In other words, can he overwrite the float amounts? Dangerous. Search we went through earlier. Can Joe reprint the transaction? Now, for retail, might also be dangerous because we might be selling ice cream from an ice cream kiosk, and all Joe is doing is reprinting the same invoice again and again and again, instead of ringing up a new sale, which means that my security doesn't pick that up. Dangerous. Guest count, wait table, waitron is a touchscreen option or function, and might not apply here. Can Joe cash out the table if it's a restaurant system? Can he configure the touchscreen? Can they do a cash up for the waitron? All right. So those are all the functionalities or permissions that's available for Joe as a cashier. And again, typically what we will allow is possibly just access point of sale and allow search, as we can see over there. You might decide other functionality. Bear in mind that each and every function or feature that you enable for Joe might have financial implications, most likely negative for the business. All right. Okay, so let's go and talk about back office permissions. We might ask Joe also to do some functionality in the back office for us. Is Joe a stock item administrator? In other words, is he able to go and do stock takes and that type of items? Okay. Is he a stock take administrator, stock take adjustments, that type of thing? Can he print a stock take sheet? Can he do debtor changes? You can put through transactions maybe on the debtors. In other words, a debit journal, credit journal, all the rest of it. Sorry, I'm just going to tick it on and off as we go. It makes it easier to understand. The same applies for creditors. Is this person somebody that's managing your GRVs? In other words, the goods received vouchers. Maybe they would then need to be able to go into the system and create a new creditor. All right. Are they able to go and do financials, debits and credit journals? Are they able to go and do a day end, a month end, and see what the turnovers are? Can they update pricing? Well, obviously you'll have a very senior person that actually follows the rules of the company, most like your right-hand person, somebody that's really strong on the system, understands how you set up your pricing matrices. That type of person would be able to do that. Are they allowed to do an update point of sale? Can they go into general maintenance or security? In other words, can they create other passwords? Can they go and pull reports? Now, bear in mind that if we allow reporting, we cannot specify, yes, reporting, but only for today. It's reporting overall. Can they get the turnover for the last year? Do we want them to be able to see the turnover for the last year? Okay. Order maintenance is, again, placing an order on our system. Can they do GRV maintenance? In other words, can they do GRVs? Can they edit it and process it? Can they do a point of sale setup? Can they do barcode maintenance, creating new barcodes and so on? Now, again, if you decide, yes, Joe is my super duper hero, my right hand person in my business, then you would most likely allow all options. Okay. So for sake of this discussion, I'm going to just take it off. Alright, and again, just bear in mind that any changes that you do over here must be updated. So we must go and do update all. Is always a better idea for passwords. For normal price changes and so on, you can do an update point of sale and say, I only want to send through the changes. And then only the changes for prices and stuff will go through to the system. Okay. So that will give you the functionality in the point of sale program, what Joe is allowed to do or not. I'm just going to finalize the sale quickly here and close the point of sale. Oops. Okay, Joe's also not allowed to close the point of sale. So I'm just going to log Joe off, use the manager password to get into the system, and then close the program down. And then I'm going to start up my 4PAS Touch program so I can just show you the same functionality in the Touch. Now the same applies in 4PAS Touch. You can either just press enter if it's a default password, or alternatively type in the password of the person. So again, I'm going to type in Joe's password, and there's my touchscreen opening up nicely. I've got Joe's soap on the right hand side, and I can get into the functionality. Exactly the same applies. Bring up an item, and now the permissions that are allowed in the background would allow Joe to be able to go and ring items or go and void things off, etc., etc. Okay, so if I then look at this table again here, let me just go and ring up something quickly. Oh, sorry, table 201 is already there. Let me just edit it. And now it's asked promptly for the security override because Joe again doesn't have permissions to go and edit the table. And I'll have to type in my supervisor or manager password, and you can see the layout is now changed to yellow to show us that there's a problem. So I can then go and void. On the touchscreen, as you know, there's a reason for it, and quite a funny story, I suppose, in different ways. We had a cashier, waiter in a restaurant some years ago that was stealing in a region of about 4,000 Rand on one specific day, Valentine's Day. And in the reason he was typing there stealing, he couldn't type the word, couldn't spell the word stealing, but he did type it in. So again, let's type in something that makes sense. And again, this would be something that your manager will type in. Not happy with the meal. Okay. Alright, and you can accept that, or the manager can then accept that and then get out of there. And then again, the manager most likely can log off at this point in time, or Joe would then be able to carry on and go and add anything else. I think that sort of like explains the whole process of passwords and permissions and what you need to do it and why it's important that you have it. Obviously, when you start off with a 4-pass system, you might say that, no, I'm not really interested in passwords right now, but it's only me working here. My mother is here in the afternoons, that type of thing. Not a problem. Then you obviously can work with just your default passwords. All right. But if it is something that you have other staff members working in the system, then it's important that you enable that as quickly as possible. Enjoy.